Since lockdown, school absence rates have doubled. If you're watching this, I'm guessing you're one of the thousands of parents who's struggling to get your child to go into school right now. Join me as I take on the challenge of what to do if your child is simply refusing to go into school. So why have we seen this huge increase in school absence rates? Well, there are a number of theories, and the most popular you might see in the mainstream media is it's just feckless parents who are letting their kids get away with it. Of course, you and me know it is far more complex than that. And I want to run through a few theories to help you understand that there is a cultural thing going on here that you are just part of. So those who saw the episode last week with my interview with Becky Brooks, the Education Policy Advisor at Adoption UK, had a really interesting theory. And she did admit there's no data to support this, but I would say anecdotally it rang really true for me. And she said that there has been this huge pressure on the curriculum so that we're asking more of children at a younger age. And I remember talking to the head teacher of a previous school I was at, and she said that she'd been having a clear out and she found some of her old schoolwork. And she said she'd done it in year 5 and she had been one of the most academically gifted children in the class. And she looked at it, and bear in mind she is a teacher, so she's able to adequately assess this. And she said it was the equivalent of a year 2 now. So what we're asking year 2 children to do is what we used to ask them to do in year 5. So there's huge pressure on children, and when you add in all the assessments and testing culture that we've had over the last 15 odd years, this is huge pressure on children, and for some it is just too much. The other theory is that the pressure of austerity over the last 14 to 15 years has left schools without the support staff that they used to have. That means that children who used to get by with a bit of additional help from an LSA, that's a learning support assistant, or a TA, a teaching assistant, that's just gone for them now. And where they were once like just about managing to hold on, they're now just falling off the cliff edge. And this is causing mental distress, because who wants to be in school not knowing what on earth is going on, feeling stupid, feeling like you can't keep up? All of this has a huge impact on children's mental well-being. Now, obviously, neither of these things has happened since lockdown. So why have we seen this point at lockdown? One reason might be that children just saw that when the adult world wanted to, it could make adaptations for them. When we were forced into it, there was flexibility to, for example, learn at home or learn online. So why should we now expect them to go into an environment that they can't cope with when they've seen that changes can be made? I know a lot of people don't like the term school refusing, and there's a move towards describing it as Emotionally Based School Avoidance, or EBSA. But part of me quite likes the term school refusing, because in a way it's children just saying, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And I have a lot of sympathy for them for that. We also have to remember that lockdown was a huge trauma for them. They may not have been affected by COVID directly, but they will have lost grandparents and other relatives. They were being stuck inside and unable to emotionally develop properly. Studies have shown that babies and small children who grew up in lockdown were starting school with much more delayed developmental stages. For example, they often weren't potty trained, they had problems with speech and language because they just hadn't had the usual socialisations that a typical child would get. And I've heard from teachers in sixth form colleges who said that the children who came up into sixth form just after lockdown just didn't have the emotional maturity you would usually expect from a child that age. And that was leading to more emotional outbursts and overwhelm and fights, We seem to forget that children have been through this because there's been very little response in terms of mental health support for them. There's been little pockets of things here and there, but there hasn't been a nationwide programme to help children recover from lockdown. And then we act surprised when suddenly they don't want to go into school anymore. So what do we do about all of this? Well, I have 3 suggestions for you. The first is reach out and ask for help. And I know that seems really simple and lots of you will have already done that. But just for those of you who are suffering in silence, please do reach out. If you're not sure who to contact, then start with the school SENCO, that's the Special Educational Needs Coordinator. Tell them that your child is in emotional distress and unable to come into school, and you want them into school but they are just refusing to come. And ask for some adaptations to be made to help them get into school. Some things you might want to ask for could be a TA or other staff member, could be the SENCO themselves, although they are very busy, coming out and meeting your child on the way into school, so before they actually get into school, and getting them to walk them the last part of the journey. I know several children who have used this strategy and it's been very successful. It's just about having that friendly face come out and help them go through the school gates. Another suggestion is having a safe space or quiet space for them to go into before they go into the chaos of the classroom. So you could have that LSA or whoever go and meet them on the journey into school, bringing them through the school gates and then taking them into a quiet room and just do some mindful type of activities like colouring in, or something that is going to engage the frontal part of their brain. Just could be some simple reading, whatever they like doing really. I know I say drawing because that was something that always really helped my daughter. It does engage a different part of the brain that helps calm kids down. And then once they're calmed down, they can then go into the classroom. But it isn't, of course, just getting into the classroom. It's what happens during the day which stops them wanting to come in the first place. And for a lot of neurodivergent children, that will be a sensory overwhelm, too many people, too much noise, too much going on. So having a space that they can retreat to in the school environment, whether that's a sensory room, some other kind of quiet room, a library, a teacher's office. I know in some secondary schools children get like pass out cards where they can get their card and the teacher knows that they're just going off because they need a break. I think these schemes are excellent. I don't know that they happen in all schools, but I think they should do. And for younger children, there should be just a designated person that they can go up to and just say, can I just go for a walk? My daughter has someone that when she's feeling overwhelmed, she'll just go up to them and say, will you just come for a walk around the playground with me? You may get some resistance from some schools about implementing these, but these are the kind of things that you can ask for, and it is not unreasonable to ask for them. So if you get pushback, just keep on fighting for them because they are reasonable adjustments. And under the 2010 Equalities Act, if your child has a disability, it doesn't have to be diagnosed, or a mental health condition that is stopping them from accessing the school curriculum, you are allowed to ask for reasonable adjustments. The next thing I'd like you to think about doing is trying tapping. Now, if you haven't heard of tapping before, it is a type of talk therapy combined with acupuncture. But instead of needles, we use our fingers, but we essentially tap on the same parts of the body as we would if we were doing acupuncture and putting the needles in. But with tapping, you don't need any specialist equipment. You don't need to hire an expensive psychotherapist. I actually have a guided tapping meditation, which I have a link to in the description, that you can access, and this will just teach you exactly what to do. Do this every morning before school and see if it helps. I worked with a family whose older daughter was diagnosed autistic and was suffering from EBSA, Emotionally Based School Avoidance. And they tried for years to get her in, and a couple of years ago they did eventually give up, and she now learns at home. And they have a younger daughter who's on the diagnostic pathway. And around the time of transition to secondary school, they were alarmed and dismayed to see their daughters starting to develop a lot of the same behaviours and even use some of the same language that their older daughter had been using, and really struggling to go into school. And it was actually on the secondary school transition day, I just happened to go past on the bus and I looked out the window and I could see them, and I can see they were having trouble. So I knew the mums, so I sent her a message and I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "I just felt so triggered because this is exactly what we went through with our eldest, and I don't know what we're going to do if we have to go through it all over again, because there's one thing having one child learning at home, I can't cope with having two." So she was in a massive panic, and completely understandably, they've been through so much trauma with their eldest. So I suggested to her whether she'd like to give tapping a go, and she was really open to that. So we started off by tapping with her because she said she was triggered, and if she's triggered, she will be emitting stress to her daughter. Even if she's trying to remain calm, her daughter will be picking up on those feelings of being triggered. So I did a session with her and we worked through a lot of the trauma which she had admitted that she'd compartmentalized with her oldest daughter. She just pushed it down because she had to get on with life and couldn't deal with it at that time. And so we actually processed that for her, and she said she felt a huge relief afterwards. For our second session, I worked with her and her daughter together, and we tapped on some of the stress and anxiety that she was feeling about starting secondary school. And within the space of half an hour, both me and her mum, saw her body physically relax. I noticed her speech became clearer. She was sort of stuttering less and looking me more in the eye, and just seemed to have more confidence, was able to see that there were some positives about going to secondary school that she was actually looking forward to. Now, I'm not saying on that first day at school there weren't difficulties, there were, but they had a Senko who was very responsive and had learnt a lot from the older sister and responded to them in a really positive way. And I actually caught up with them recently and said, "Do you need some more tapping sessions?" And she said, "Well, I don't think we do actually. There's just been no more problems." And she said that there have been incidents that have been a bit upsetting that happened in school, but she said her daughter just wasn't coming home dysregulated in the way that she used to. So we're a term now into year 7, and I'm pleased to say that I haven't heard any more from them. They haven't come back asking me for any more support. So tapping can be an effective solution to manage school avoidance and school anxiety. So do check out that guided tapping meditation. There's a link to it in the description. Now, the third thing that you can do is a little bit more radical. If nothing's working, if the adjustments aren't working, or if the school is refusing to do the adjustments,